All right, I'd like to call the June 2nd Audit Committee meeting to order for 3 p.m. First thing that we will do is approve our agenda. Have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Mr. Grice? Okay, any discussion?
Question, Chairperson. On the April minutes, the topic came up about discussion about internal auditing.
Yes.
Not here. I guess maybe that's a future discussion you'd like to take up.
Yes, we did start talking about it, and I did not put it on this agenda.
Carry it forward to the next agenda.
Yeah, we can carry it forward, we can carry it forward to the next agenda, that's a good idea.
I'm sorry, what item is that?
That was an internal audit discussion that we had last time.
Yeah.
And just kind of scratched the surface and decided we want to come back to it or not.
Yes, and we will. There wasn't, I mean, basically, Mr. Stanton, there wasn't anything pressing that staff believed,
Right.
Was worthy of like an immediate audit. We've taken care of the cash handling procedures and some other things that I think, and training that I think we believe needed to be addressed most immediately. And so on the internal audit side, as we discussed it in April, Ms. Wells, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we found that there were policies and procedures in place. I mean, basically, we couldn't figure out who was going to do all the work and where we really needed to start because staff really felt like things were functioning correctly. So we can talk about it again in August and put a little more into it, but that was the gist of it. Thank you. Any other comments on the agenda? All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. Stan, you okay with the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. All right. Mr. Ball, would you mind leading us? Yes. Well, we're supposed to pray first. Sorry.
I'll stand up.
Okay.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this incredibly beautiful day you provided for us. Your grace and mercy are awesome. Your creation is tremendous. So as we gather tonight, we thank you for the talents and skills you've given each person's here. We ask that we bring them to bear to manage and grow our community so it serves everybody well. So thank you for this time together. Bless it. May we do the right things. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, thank you. Okay. As for my remarks, thank you for allowing me the time. I do intend you all will notice that there has not been a replacement supervisor named to the audit committee yet. I know we've talked about that in our last few meetings. We do have a supervisors meeting on Thursday. We have an executive committee prior to that meeting, or an executive session, excuse me. And so I plan on nailing one of those people down to join me on the audit committee. Haven't had anyone, step forward. Mr. DiStefano, I did speak with him, and he is planning on accepting, a nomination. We can make that from the board. But again, we'll talk about that in our nomination session and the executive session this Thursday. So hope to have one, a replacement by the next meeting, which again, I was hopeful for this meeting, but we'll get it done. All right, next thing would be the April minutes. As you recall, I did cancel the meeting in May, and so hopefully the meeting minutes to me looked brief but accurate, and see if there's any comments on the minutes, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve them as written.
Okay. Any comments? All righty. All in favor of approving the April minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay, well, that takes care of that. This evening we have no visitors scheduled. I would like to make the announcement that Treasurer Sly has agreed to report to us at the August 4th meeting. You ask why August 4th? Because I do plan on canceling the audit committee again in July. So I know we gave you a little breather in May, we also would like you to take vacation and time with your family until July. We'll meet again August 4th, if that's okay.
Excellent,
Okay.
because I didn't want to sign in from over in France.
Oh, you'll be in France? Okay. So, by way of that announcement, Mr. Robertson, the next meeting of the audit committee will be August 4th. It's the first Monday of August. And Treasurer Sly again has agreed to attend. What I would like you all to give it some consideration to is when Ms. Sly did attend the meeting to prepare for her visit on August 4th. I took a lot of notes. I know there are things in the minutes, but we had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Sly and ask her some questions about her policies and procedures, training of her staff, how things are going, what kinds of things she'd like to see as KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And so I really would like us to be well prepared in advance of that August 4th meeting. I'd like anything that we have as questions to get those to her in advance so that she can really be prepared to speak to us intelligently about her answers, her plan, again, her key performance indicators, and all those things. Because if you recall in March, there weren't a whole lot of answers. There was a lot of questions, not a whole lot of answers. She was still figuring out, new staff and new processes and et cetera. So,
I appreciate your point of view. I'd be very happy to collect everybody's input, smooth that up and consolidate, and then give back to you something to give to her.
Right.
So we don't come across as aggressive. She has time to review and so, but I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And my role as secretary, yes.
I think that would be great.
You can send me your stuff in France.
Or before you go.
After I get back.
Okay. When do you leave?
22nd.
Well, safe
Taking his
travels.
wife on an anniversary cruise. He's being a good
Nice.
guy for once.
Safe travels.
No, it's every other year. Even so this was our 48th.
So,
Congratulations.
I would like to have those comments probably like no later than, like the middle of July kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I'd say we give ourselves a month. I'd say by the next time we should have had a meeting, it would be great to get those to you so that you have a week or two to prepare, and then she has a week or two to kind of sit with that. What do you think about that?
Oh, okay, so the comments are due by the first Monday in July.
That's what I would say.
If I don't have them,
And
I'll put on the Admiral shoulder boards and come find you.
yeah, I'd say by the first Monday of July, gives you a little time to collate. Develop messaging and questioning, etc., and then we get that to Ms. Sly. By mid-July, and then she has time to prepare for her visit August 4th. That sound okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll compile it, make it look nice,
Mhm.
eliminate duplicates, I won't change any of the words, and then share that with you. Is it you that you wanna pass it to her, or Dawn, what?
I'm happy to. Yeah, and I'll copy everybody.
Okay.
Please don't copy everybody.
Oh, I meant only a few of you.
The counselor's here.
As appropriate, right? Thank you. All right, I'm going to actually, as the chairwoman's purview, I'm going to move the budget report. I'm actually going to move the budget report. I have it in here twice, so I'm sorry that I didn't catch that. We do have a report this evening. Mr. Keaton is going to present where we landed for the 25-26 budget. But I do also have that, if you notice, as item D under old business, since we have brought some budget discussion to this body in the past. So we're going to move that to D. Again, it's listed as a report. We're going to talk about it after we talk about some other fun stuff, okay? So we'll go into old business next. When I reviewed the April meeting, Ms. Wells, I believe that it was stated that we were going to have a update to Tyler Cash Sharing on the 21st of April. So I was hoping, and that will probably lead us into the next discussion about an ERP vendor and some research that Mr. Stanton has done. I'm sure you're fully aware of all of that. And he sent us some documentation and materials prior to this meeting. So I'm going to ask him to cover that. But if you'd like to talk to us about how that went.
There were some updates rather to the Tyler cashiering, module, because when they did some testing, there were still issues with it. And so for the whole month of May, there was a lot of work on the Tyler cashiering to try to get it to work properly for the twice a year billing that we have here at Isle of Wight. And so the most recent testing was supposed to occur over the weekend. I haven't gotten back with IT yet to ask them how that testing went. I believe that the last thing that they were testing was to ensure that the receipts were printing properly when a customer was at the window and they received a printed receipt. One other development with that is utility billing was supposed to begin their Tyler cashiering deployment starting today. So by the next time we meet again, I would expect that we would say that both utility billing and tax is up and running completely with Tyler cashiering.
I have seen some comments online from citizens about issues with Tyler cashiering and inability to pay online.
So I'm not sure if it's the Tyler cashiering that's causing issues or if it's the citizen self-service. So I would be interested to know specifically what the issue was. Was it not taking credit cards? Was it not taking checks? Specifically, I'd be interested to hear what that problem was.
I can go back and look.
Okay.
And I've forgotten that there were two separate kind of modules, but
Right. Depending on whether or not they use their bill number or whether or not they go into citizen self-service, because there's two different ways to get to the payment platform, the issues that they may experience could be different, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the customer would know where the glitch is.
They wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily, but if we knew what
What
the problem was,
is,
we
yeah.
might be able to track down
Yeah.
what the issue was.
Has someone taken a look at the reporting that comes off of these, out of that system for the cashiering?
So when you say take a look at the reporting, is it a specific concern you have? Is there something that you want to see?
And how are we doing on the collections or status of non-payments or?
So that cashiering system does not affect that. That information comes from our accounts receivable module. And so the information feeds into accounts receivable as we're taking payments, and then we pull our reports from accounts receivable. So they interact, but Tyler cashiering, you wouldn't get any type of collection report from.
So that all comes off of Munis?
It's all Munis, yes. All of this that we're referencing is Munis.
This is just an adjunct to it.
Basically, yep, it's a module for taking payments, especially in our case to assist with credit card payments specifically.
I know we track collections on the taxes for real estate and real property, which is a great report. It allows us to know the status and how successful we're at doing that. So the question, now that we're introducing utilities to that, is that something that's going to be added to the reporting structure?
No, because that's not related. We can get utilities reports also through our billing system. So we have a tax accounts receivable, and then we have a utility billing. Tyler payments, cashiering, that just is a function of a cashier function. We take your money, we apply it to your bill. When it gets applied to the bill, that changes all the accounts receivable, utility billing information. So Tyler cashiering wouldn't give you any report other than say, this is how much we collected today, and this is how much may have been in property tax or that type of thing. But even that isn't necessarily coming out of Tyler cashiering. Tyler cashiering will say, I took $3,000 in checks, $2,000 in whatever, but it's hard to explain because it's all done through a batch. Tyler cashiering takes all this money, posts it to a batch, and then it's in the GL and it's in the AR. So none of that Tyler cashiering piece is our reporting function.
So it's primarily a working structure. So feeds into other figures. With the, are we, as part of that utility, collection, is that being deferred now to outside?
No, the, HRSD, I think, we haven't gotten down on the list to be able
We're-
to have them,
We're still way down
Yeah.
the queue.
For
they're,
their queue,
yes,
okay. So we're not, are we prepared for that?
I believe we are, it's a long way off.
Because I know we're paying for it.
not specifically.
So, it's incorporated in their cost of doing business
Mhm.
that we're paying for in their services.
Well, because they don't bill for us for that piece of it, we're not necessarily paying for it. But
Stephanie, are utility collections included in the collections report that you do?
no.
Is that something that we should review, the collections percentage on that, since it's a different staff and it was kind of?
If you would like a utilities report, we can, or collections report, we can create one. There's just not one right now because it's the utility side of what the county does, not the tax collection rate. The other thing is we have to be really careful about what we provide because that's less public information, like there's less information you get because it's private, individuals, personal billing. So it would be solely, AR type collection report, like 0 to 30 days, 30 to 60, 60 to 90 type thing.
I don't know about the rest of the committee, I kind of like to see that, I know it's a separate.
Metadata level would be fine.
Okay,
So
so,
you want it specifically to come to the audit committee?
sure, yeah, and then we can review it and refer it to the board.
I think it should be sent to the board, with the audit committee taking a look at, and having any recommendations.
So the board didn't specifically ask for it, we just did, so,
Oh, well, that's
Sure.
recommended that we send it to the board.
yeah, yeah, so let's look at it and then we'll send it to the board. If that's okay. Stephanie, also one other question, I'll ask this under the section of Tyler cashiering, and although I know it's not totally germane. On the collections report, it doesn't give like an average days to deposit or anything. I do have a specific concern about collection of taxes, and about citizens who pay their taxes, and then in one case, it's been 21 days since this individual that talked to me about it has written their check. They wrote their same checks to the town of Smithfield, and those were deposited within 4 days, and the county checks have yet to be deposited, and now it's been 3 weeks. So,
If we can even get that report, I think it would be very ugly. Would not be a pleasant thing to review, but would be glad to look into it. I mean,
Well, present or not.
I know, I
it-
understand.
It has an impact.
Yes.
The availability of cash is absolutely essential.
well, I'm kind of concerned about our ability to create interest on, $4,000 or $5,000 at a time of checks that sit around for 3 weeks. There's no telling how much money we're losing in interest, and I don't even know where it sits. Does it just sit in a box somewhere? And do you think that's a function of, we used to have a lockbox, and then the lockbox vendor would put the money in and take care of all the posting and electronic?
I would say that would have a big impact on it because the checks that went to them probably get processed quicker since when they get here, we have a fewer staff here to process those checks. But I'm not in that department, so maybe that's something that Julie should speak to.
I'd like an answer on that before August 4th. I mean, I think that's pretty serious, right? We're collecting money and people are paying, and I don't balance my checkbook, don't tell my husband, but, I don't balance the checkbook, but a lot of people do, and they track checks and they would like to know, how their cash flow is gonna work.
And the system, in a weird way, captures that because when somebody pays, the accounts receivable will say, okay, they paid on June 5th, because that's the stamp date on the check. The treasurer's office then posted that on June 25th, say, be more gracious, June 7th. Because that's when it got deposited. And then, maybe on June 5th, or maybe that was the day it was received, but not actually deposited, but then on June 15th, it actually got put into the new system. On June 15th, you can do work to tell the system about the 5th and the 7th. But until the 15th, nothing actually occurred in the system. So that's why I said it could be, not only could it be ugly, how would you get the system to tell you accurately what was the 7th, what was the 5th, and maybe there is a report. I don't know. I'll have to check into that.
Well, another question I would have is if it's going beyond a 30-day window, then at what point do we trigger that a payment is past due, and what date are you using?
So in the system, it thinks that the payment is past due on the 6th, but then on the 7th or the 15th, whatever date it actually goes into the system, the person that's doing this work says, no, it was received on the 5th. The system says, okay, back up, there's no penalty, no interest. So the citizens are not being penalized for that, but it's obviously not a good financial practice to have something outstanding for that long.
And the county doesn't have the opportunity to start using the money.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe we could get a report on that before August 4th. Is it okay to email a report, Mr. Jen?
I email it to Don.
Comes to the staff, then staff can send.
All right, you get all that, Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, well, I'd like to move into consideration of a CRP system review discussion. And it's not CRP, it's ERP. I apologize. So ERP system review discussion. I think Mr. Stanton's prepared to lead that for us.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Robertson, do you have the briefs?
I do.
Okay, if you could bring those up. You save some paper.
And we start with the, what is ERP?
ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning System. It is a platform, an operating platform to which other software applications and modules are home-based. It uses common interfaces and common language and common protocols for a lot of these things to move seamlessly, a lot of data to move seamlessly. Instead of moving up a top of a data stovepipe and over to the next one, it's supposed to move seamlessly across. That's the theory behind an Enterprise Resource Planning System. Is that close enough, Dr. Bob?
That sort of fits very well.
I had the privilege, Ms. Wells invited me to participate in a couple of meetings with the staff as they reviewed their ERP system strategy. The county IT system right now employs a 20-year-old ERP system with add-on applications, sort of in a hybrid format to fulfill some unique county needs. The ERP system we currently operate is entirely county-owned and licensed and is locally hosted on servers here. I make that point because what's one of the underlying issues here is that the ERP industry at large is shifting clients from a legacy local system operation to cloud-based service. The rationale behind that is they try to sell clients such as us, you don't have to buy servers anymore, you don't have to maintain servers, you don't have to do configuration control, we'll take care of all that for you. And while that's true, they then incur cost, and cloud computing is quite expensive. So the current ERP provider that the county's been working with for since 2006 is Tyler Ennis. They've been in the marketplace for many, many years. They have a very good reputation. But they did provide a cost-prohibitive estimate to Ms. Wells to convert the county's ERP to a cloud-based service. And that caused Ms. Wells to call the team together and Mr. Robertson called the team together to do a kind of a deep dive on where are we with our ERP system. During these deliberations, the staff determined that an ERP cloud transition is inevitable given the progression of technology, but it's not inevitable in the near term. So we have about a 5-year window in which we can make some intelligent decisions about the future transition. Slide, please, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Bob. Okay.
Going back to your first bullet, the first question is, are the hybrid applications external to the old ERP, or are they code modifications to the existing ERP in simple terms?
Neither one. They're the add-on applications are external completely, like a whole new vendor. Open
So
up.
third-party vendors
Yes.
that are integrated with the old system.
In most cases integrated, yes, not always integrated.
How many of those are there? Well, I mean, just descriptively, not number. A lot, some.
Some.
I
And
remember,
we actually talk about that a little bit in the memo.
So you go hire third-party people to develop the unique capability that's the hybrid thing to meet whatever needs. And so are those requirements county requirements, state requirements, all the above? What makes it unique?
They are unique because Munis doesn't provide that,
They just don't do it as part of their thing.
or not to
Not
the
the way
level
you
of,
agree.
right,
that
we
you need.
prefer something better or need something different. In our case, OpenGov specifically, like Munis used to help with planning and zoning, inspections when Munis wasn't at the level that they were needing, being the department needed them to be at with certain aspects.
That makes sense. So in looking at upgrading the ERP system from 20-year-old to all those third-party things need upgraded to match what would be new?
No.
Would they fit into what's new because they're more flexible code, or would they be consumed in the new one, or what would happen, do you think?
All of the above could potentially happen depending on where we went. If we went with a whole new vendor, maybe the new vendor would
Would have that functionality?
right. Or we could be in the same system, same situation we are now with the same number of hybrid applications, but potentially they would still work because they're working now. And most of them are already cloud, so it should be easier, more beneficial
That's an interesting point. So most of them, the third-party things are more modern
than.
than the baseline ERP in
Well,
simple terms.
And Munis does have a more modern system. We have just not adopted that system for price, for manageability by IT, for several reasons that we have not upgraded to that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your discussion.
and to your point, Dr. Baugh, to kind of answer your question another way, I think as we move forward, part of the challenge with these adjunct applications will be properly defining those requirements and interfaces in RFP, should we decide to put them together. Slide please, Mr. Robertson. So the staff, in the process of these deliberations, they were able to negotiate a favorable pricing from the current vendor to continue operating the current ERP system. And this obviously provides some budget stability for the county, but equally important is it provides time for the staff to develop an ERP system that I call transition strategy, which will probably take place sometime after the 2030 timeframe. And that transition strategy will include the identification of requirements, market research, procurement planning, staff training, and preparation for the likely technology shift and associated learning curve. The staff does believe the system they're working on today is highly functional, but they do recognize that the future ERP system transition will be necessary and will provide efficient delivery of county services. And I like this to the 75 Dodge Charger that Attorney Jones has in his garage that he's constantly spending money on to keep running. And the parts get more and more expensive and obsolete and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what we're facing right here is at some point the vendors will be increasingly disinclined to service a home-based ERP system, and then we will pay for that disinclination.
Mr. Jones really likes the car.
Oh, it's a hot looking ride. Slide please, Mr. Robertson.
It fits his long legs too, right? Fits his long legs. In our case,
Yeah.
it fit what we need. every
Gotcha.
time.
The comment about inevitable, is that driven by a view of current business trends that eventually, what's the reason why you think it's inevitable to have to cloud versus stay with a local server?
So for a lot of these vendors, they expend more money trying to maintain the configuration on a home-based server that's,
So it becomes a financial, economic kind of thing.
right, it's cost competitive for them to transition everything to a smaller number of software baselines hosted on a cloud computer.
So if we didn't transition, then theoretically, the cost of maintaining will grow on some kind of nonlinear or exponential kind of thing because of the challenge.
Or we wouldn't be able to be served, because as technology changes, nobody does MS-DOS anymore, right? So you get Windows, you get Apple. So we either go with Windows and Apple, or we're gonna have to use our own MS-DOS system for the rest of our life, and who's gonna,
Is that what it is in this?
no, not at all.
Wow.
Just,
I remember that.
yeah, just a good example.
But yet that's the case, and they've still returned a quote that was cost prohibitive to move to the cloud now.
Yes,
Right.
So will they kind of change their perspective on that?
Well, right now, they're still allowing it, but I think the problem with the pricing is two things. One, they paid a lot of money to go to the cloud because that's the trend of the marketplace.
they made that investment.
Yeah.
They want to recover as quickly as possible.
Honestly, it may not be twofold, it might just be it, I mean, it's more expensive to provide that cloud service.
My hunch is, and I don't know, no facts, but my hunch is that this has been a very long relationship with this provider. And I think maybe they got a little comfortable and thought they could throw a number out there. What's that?
It should be.
And I thought they could just throw a number out that they thought we would be comfortable with. And Ms. Wells, to her credit, said, no, we're not comfortable with that number. We're gonna go back and revisit where we stand. And so I think there's some of that going on. Long-term contracts are, they do get a little stagnant and stale sometimes.
So the previous slide, I think I understand, sorry, that you summarized that Ms. Wells had negotiated a preferential or an acceptable 3-year term to continue on-prem.
Right, we told them that we would not go to the cloud based on that. We would go to the market first and let the market force us into paying that price. There was no way we were gonna accept that. So in that discussion, they agreed to, for the next 3 years, keep us at our current pricing, but also not to force us into the cloud environment either, which they also made the comment that they weren't really trying to force us to the cloud environment. They were just expressing the benefits of going to the cloud, that you're gonna get more whistles, bells, whatever with this cloud service. Functionality is supposed to be improved. We being IT prefers the ability to manage our data on site in-house instead of having it floating around in the cloud, which is, a good argument when so many things are being hacked could Google get hacked? Could Amazon get hacked? The potential is always there. And to keep that potential at bay as best as possible, it's expensive. So it's expensive to go to the cloud, but it's also expensive, like you said, to have cloud-based services and on-prem services. And that's why they want to push us out of that. They don't want to keep servicing on-prem clients.
Does the contract specify they're not gonna sunset any current functionality? I mean,
Right.
I get it that they develop something new that bakes the bread and makes the eggs in the morning, but that'll only be available on cloud, or in the cloud. But anything that we existing have purchased for the next 3 years, we can keep on-prem, they'll continue to support.
And they think it'll actually be longer than that, like 8 to 10 years at a minimum. They don't have any set plans right now to phase out any clients that still prefer to be on-prem.
Chairperson Roundtree, I sat in on the VTC with the vendor, and their body language is they were a little surprised that they had annoyed us so much. And they were very much sort of backtracking and looking for ways to accommodate where we were and what we needed. So it was kudos to Ms. Wells for signaling competitive forces, because I think she really got their attention.
They thought it was just a easy peasy
Yeah.
renewal.
Hey, we've had issue for 20 years, we'll just throw another steak on the grill.
Was the town of Smithfield discussed at all in their RFP process?
That wasn't a part of this discussion in particular.
But that would be part of the requirements, should we go through a transition, is to define those interfaces that we have to maintain with Smithfield, with Windsor, with school department.
I'm guessing that would be up to the town of Smithfield. I know they're taking it to their committee.
That's a whole
Tonight.
other discussion, somewhat aside from this, because, we were in partnership with Munis, hoping that they were gonna sign on to Munis. The town of Windsor has enjoyed being with Munis, and that inter-functionality easily, the data talking back and forth. The issues that Smithfield have had with implementing Munis, they want it off the table. And so we don't know right now how hard or easy it's gonna be for us or Munis, Tyler, to interface with whatever Smithfield is deciding to do. That would be up to them to have that discussion with their vendor to say, this is what we need you to be able to do. We need you to be able to take this information from Munis and make it into our system easily. If it doesn't, that's on them.
Well, just a suggestion, and that is, what you just said needs to be communicated to them. Because I don't think there's anyone within the organization, the Smithfield organization, that knows all the right questions to ask.
And that tends to happen a lot with doing an RFP, is not always knowing the questions to ask, which is why you need the stakeholders, all possible stakeholders in the room. And we had that discussion with who we were gonna involve in our planning process, which departments are using units now, what are their needs. So, it is important to have that, and maybe they have, and it's just not a question that came to light in your discussion, but.
In the discussion I had, they are transitioning, period.
Mhm.
And I did not ask the question, how are you going to interface?
So this is a public document that I've printed as well as you can have it actually. It's from Laura Ross, the treasurer of the town. And it's information about pricing and the discussion. It's a public document, right? She presented it to the town council in mid-May. But I do believe they have a meeting sometime soon where they're gonna try and decide on the new vendor. They've definitely made the decision that they're not willing to use Munis any longer. It's been 8 years. They have been paying for modules that have never been and will never be implemented. So, we now have some information from the town of Smithfield as the vendors. There's 2 that they considered. I do think they're leaning towards one of the 2. It's outlined in the document. Again, public information. It's already been presented to council. But I think some of the questions Ms. Wells brings up are interesting, and I guess I would ask you to have that conversation with Ms. Ross about
Would I not
the interfaces.
Would I not be overstepping to say, hey, by the way, did you?
I think the way you approach it perhaps is through our IS organization.
Contract.
Because we are servicing them. IT. And IT.
Well, it's just kind of like, hey, not making any assumptions as to what they have or haven't considered, but hey, as the county, we have this data. How are you going to get it? Has your possibly new vendor talked to you about how they're planning on getting it out? Because they're still going to have to leverage that to then levy their taxes.
My quick question today was, explain to me how you're currently billing through HSRD, and they've been relatively successful at that. And she showed me the documentation where they are prepared to do that. But I did not ask her because I didn't know how closely the information link was between the town and the county and how that was communicated. So
Well, one thing
I wasn't familiar with.
I'm a little concerned about reading this, and based on my experience, while RDA does not have the employer application module, they're willing to do that for us, and as well as the module for permitting. In my experience, if they don't already have that, you're asking for a headache. If that's something that you want, you should probably make sure they have that already, because, you don't want to be the guinea pig.
So that's a custom build. takes
That's
a lot
what
of,
that's.
custom build equals lots of time and money.
And sometimes not a successful plan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's really hard to get these vendors to be honest about what they're capable of. OpenGov is a perfect example. We had them, they're like, yeah, you're gonna love us, we're great. And then we started trying to implement OpenGov, and I wouldn't sign a 5-year contract with them because I was concerned about whether or not they would work for us, and so we didn't. So we were able to get out of that. But long story short, they didn't provide what they were positive they could provide without a lot of effort from our staff. So, it's just one of those things where you definitely want to try that out and make sure it already does it, or that what they say they're capable of is actually what they can do. But it's hard. It's not an easy process. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. So, I'm sure they've worked hard on trying to figure out what they need at Smithfield.
So, Chairperson, Ron, not to put too fine a point on it, but the whole discussion around the independence of where Smithfield might be going is all the more reason why there's never a one-size-fits-all ERP solution. It's just another example of an independent variable that you got to juggle. My recommendations to the committee are for the committee to support the staff's continuation of the current service contract with the pricing that was specified, as well as the staff's intent to develop a future ERP system transition strategy. Also recommend staff establish a transition strategy project schedule, a requirements list, rigorously validated by the county departments, and also a risk and opportunity matrix to manage the transition. And the staff can provide periodic briefs to the committee on the transition and subsequent implementation.
So this transition you speak of is out in the future, longer than 3 years.
Yeah, we would have time here, again, we've locked in some pricing, so we have time to go start figure out what does that transition strategy look like, do market research, the procurement planning, requirements definition. So I think this is really a fortuitous outcome here that Ms. Wells has crafted and her team. If there's no other questions, there's one last point of order I'd like to bring to the attention of the committee. I've marked this document procurement sensitive for the county. I need some guidance here from Mr. Jones. I worked in federal government entities where a document like this would be procurement sensitive and would have limited distribution. I don't know if that's the case with the county. If it is, this is also a public forum where things like this, you would only show people, some potential vendors, where cards are holding close to our vest. So I think we just need to figure out how we want to manage and control this kind of discussion and documentation. To that end, there's a memorandum that I wrote for the committee. It basically is an expanded version of what we discussed here. If you want, you can read it and then add it into the minutes as part of the record. And Mr. Robertson has copies of that.
A short answer to your question is, when we're talking about actual negotiation items regarding what we're looking for in a RFP or any of those, that is something that we can not have to provide to a FOIA request until after the contract is actually issued, and then all of it becomes public at that point. But that our internal discussions about what are we looking for, as long as that's going to be public. But the actual nuts and bolts when we're talking about numbers, yes, we do keep that close to the vest.
Essentially, as soon as you hit send, your disclaimer didn't matter anymore. It's a public document.
Okay, that's different from the federal government. Okay.
We can't play those games.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that clarification. I'll remove this bumper sticker then.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Ms. Wells, is the contract been executed, the renewal?
No, it's frozen essentially. There's no new contract. We wouldn't have a new contract.
This was evergreen, you just continue on the same, but there's in writing somewhere that they're not gonna increase our rate for 3 years?
Well, we have an email for sure, but do we need to have them sign an amendment to the contract for that?
I had to look at
It's
it.
a free, yeah. I'll fill you in on the rest of it.
Was that a yes?
He's gonna look.
Okay.
I hadn't been part of this,
Okay.
so I have to look at what's going on to be able to give an answer.
Feel disappointed that you didn't get.
I do, I feel so
I'm
disappointed.
so sorry.
Well, if it just keeps going in 1 year terms or 3 year, whatever the original agreement
It's
says.
year. It's year.
If I may make a suggestion, too often we have a tendency to kick the can down the road without target dates and an outline of how would we arrive at some point. And I would suggest that we go back and perhaps redraw some type of organized approach to this, so that 3 years from now, we aren't doing the same report.
The memo, I believe, has some preliminary number of years, like we're gonna do this in years 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, or whatever it was, and then 3 to 5, and then execute by X date or something like
Yeah,
that.
there's recommendations in
It's
the
in the report.
last piece.
I
Yeah, in the
haven't
memo.
read the report.
And, yeah.
That's the point of the project schedule, is let's build the schedule that we can pace ourselves.
So you've outlined the schedule in it for.
I haven't outlined one. We're asking the staff to outline what that schedule should look like.
And we've started the requirements list as well, so, the expectation is we'll probably end up either meeting or at least, touching base on the project, and by we, it would be mostly me and IT. At some point, IT is gonna be the main lead on it, touching base quarterly to make sure that it kind of stays on track.
So I'd like, per Mr. Stanton's request, to enter the memo into the minutes. I'll give that to you, Mr. Robertson, the official copy. Great, any other comments? Thank you very much for all your work and time, and any other comments about the ERP
One question.
situation?
So, do you think that what you know, that a cloud-based service would bring enhanced services to county, both the staff and members? That's a big picture question. I know you have no specifics to it, but what's your instinct?
At some point, yes, because they're not gonna keep doing the bells and whistles
Yeah.
for the older
I
system.
think that tracks.
The other thing though is again the price. If you want those bells and whistles, you're not necessarily gonna get them for that base price.
Yeah.
You may have to pay for them anyway. It's just like all the special modules that they do to fix this and fix that. There'll be an AI module to fix AP, there'll be an AI module to fix accounting, or whatever the case may be, and you're gonna pay for that. So, yes, and maybe no.
Fair answer. And do you think a cloud-based service would provide more auditable information than what we are currently, because it would be more conformance and more generic to business?
No, I don't think it's more or less auditable to go to a cloud-based system at all, because we have Audit, the whole system tracks every person that does anything in the system, it tracks an audit trail, so it's not any more or less auditable.
Is our existing server farm backed up in different locations kind of thing? Is that
We
IT
had that
secure?
discussion as well, and I said I wanted one off-site completely, like in a whole new region of the country if necessary, but Jason has assured us that there's a couple of different backups, so.
And that's part of the challenge from a cost standpoint. We could replace all of our servers every year for the difference in price.
Well, and it's the backup more
That's
than
interesting.
anything,
There's a metric.
right,
Mm.
right. If we have a storm here and our servers go down, how do we get that information back if the whole building blows up, if all the servers blow up? Where are those backups located? And we're not gonna talk about where they are in public, but they're supposed to be, yes, and he has said yes, so. I haven't physically seen them, but
And I think part of IT's concern, although it's not as much of a concern today as it was a couple of years ago, is what happens if the internet goes down.
Yeah.
Because if the internet goes down, cloud-based services
Doesn't matter.
aren't accessible.
We could put one in Hawaii and have to go out there and check on it.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's
I'm on that committee.
All
Audit that.
All right, well, moving on. Thank you again, Ms. Stanton, for that, and Ms. Wells.
That was good, thank you.
Next topic is consideration of animal shelter donations. I think Mr. Stanton had indicated to us he had some connections in Virginia Beach, and as we were trying to figure out how to assist the animal shelter, that again, the provision of that service falls under the Sheriff's Department. I think I know that he had agreed to speak to his friends in Virginia Beach, so I think he has a report for us this evening.
Yes, I'll preface this by saying, after shaking this bush since you asked the question a few months ago, Chairperson, that I just got a note here about an hour before the meeting from Mr. Keaton said that they do receive private donations from individuals now. So I don't know if something new has evolved since you asked the question of Mr. Robertson, if you got some insight on that.
There's nothing new. It's, I think, the conversation has probably been more around whether or not there's a 501c3 or nonprofit that receives the funds, and that's not the case. They come to the county. They're just accounted for as a separate deposit or a separate account.
So individuals are able currently and have been able to make donations, but has to be written out to the county. It is then not tax deductible. And
It's tax deductible if you donate to the county.
It's just that most people don't like to give their money to the county as a contribution or a charitable contribution.
Well, in the past, I think the reason why we addressed this several years ago was there was no visual audit trail or easily seen audit trail of that the money was being actually used for the animal shelter.
Well, I think you all have it.
It is,
because
and
This was several years ago.
The concern is specifically to 501c3 and whether or not they can get grants. You
Right.
can give money to a government and as a donation and take it off your taxes, but certain organizations will not grant money to localities, but they will grant money to 501c3. And I believe from our earlier discussion, that's the main issue.
yes, making it more grant funding available, available to apply for. There's also a little nuance with many employers who will do matching. So like if Dale wanted to donate $2,500 to the animal shelter and he worked for a company that has an employer match, many of those employers will not accept that as a gift destination unless it's a 501c3. So government entity, a school, has to be a 501c3 so that they can have the match. Then you can give $5,000 to the shelter, not $2,500. So yes, it is all about like just the multiplication factor of individuals' money and how we can further help the animal shelter.
Okay, so I'll just run through this quickly, and this is what I've gleaned through the Virginia Beach Animal Care and Adoption Center. This adoption center that's run out of Virginia Beach is under their police department. It is not a 501c3 organization, as you have highlighted. They do accept donations, as we do here, but they have a parallel nonprofit citizens advisory committee that is a 501c3 that supports the Virginia Beach Police Department. So they're kind of like a relief organization that raises money for the police department, and within that organization, they have a special account for donations that go to the shelter. They're targeted for the shelter. So it was a little sketchy getting some information. The Animal Care and Adoption Center out of Virginia Beach, they're very hard to communicate with. They don't have a contact me at their webpage. Their answering service is just it's not answering service, it's just a message service. You can't leave an answer. So I had to go on and act like I was adopting a pet to write in, hey, I'd like to talk to somebody about X.
What were you?
What's that?
What kind of pet were you?
He was adopting one, not acting like a pet.
Oh.
But he may have had one.
That's right, guys. So I finally got somebody's attention through that bootstrapping operation, and they came back and gave me this email that's on slide 2, which is somewhat confusing, and I won't belabor you with it, but the stuff in yellow there is kind of closer to where we were at. To make the donations for the Animal Care and Adoption Center received by the shelter, rather than going to the general fund, we ask the donations given to the Citizen Advisory Committee. That's an adjunct committee to the police department. That's a 501c3. The CAC supports the police department, and they're a nonprofit. I asked some subsequent questions to get a little bit more information about sort of the legal construct, the tax construct, and they kind of ran out of answers. So I put a phone call in this morning to the Virginia Beach City Attorney's Office to talk to one of their staff attorneys to see if they could just make sure we understand their construct. I'm waiting for an email or a phone call back from Virginia Beach. But I think the enabling issue here is, as you pointed out, if we can create a shadow parallel organization that's 501c3 grant eligible. They did in Virginia Beach, they attached it to the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Police Department. Now, we don't need another committee here in the county, but if there's something we could do that parallels that, that appears to be the trick. That concludes my presentation, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
I wonder if the sheriff's department already has something similar.
Yeah, I'm wondering that too. I'm wondering that, does the sheriff's department have something similar? I know a similar organization was recently begun. It's called like Foundations of Hope or Dreams of Hope or something like that. And it's a group that their stated purpose is to support police and sheriff's department, functions and officers, right? They are the group that who is going, and I understand it's a 501c3, I may have to check, I haven't seen the paperwork, but they're the group that's gonna take over administering and running the hog jog every October, because Christian Outreach has been holding the hog jog and they're out of that business. And so this, I think it's Dreams of Hope Foundation, is going to start having that. They will then be the recipient of any monies left over after the event. And so, from what I've read online, their stated purpose is to support, safety service workers and specifically police and sheriff's deputies, etc. I think it's the same group who also sponsored the softball game between several of the departments and things like that. So it sounds like a really fun organization with a good goal and stated purpose. I can check a little more into that. I might ask Mr. Robertson to help me talk to Sheriff Clark about, if they have anything similar to this advisory committee
What's the
that
hog jog?
Virginia Beach has. I'm sorry.
What's the hog jog?
So the hog jog is an event in downtown Smithfield. It's why you see little pink pig feet, hog
It's a
feet on
It's
the
a
road.
5K run that
It is a
raises money
5K.
for Christian Outreach.
Yeah.
And you said they were out of the business, you mean the hog jog business? Christian
Yes.
Outreach.
Yeah. Christian Outreach is no longer going to administer the race. It's a
Right.
lot. I mean, it takes a lot of volunteers. It's a lot of work.
Our person who did it left the area. So no longer
Are you on the
is-
board?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I should have asked you.
So-
Was that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
The person who ran it left the area, and that left Christian Outreach with nobody to really do it, and it's not really a central part of their mission to do
Right.
something like that. So the
Right.
decision was made to put it someplace where it could continue to do what it does.
Right.
Well, my concern would be that is to take a look at the documentation on their citizen advisory committee, this specific one, because it may, this mission statement on that may be directly related to a specific count to the sheriff's department. So it may be much more specific, so that the money is flowing from the CEA to being used for the county purposes. I don't know, okay, but I think it merits some additional review.
So more to come, but we're getting closer. I think we're getting warmer, as they say.
Yeah, so last slide here, if you will, Mr. Robertson. I'm going to modify the recommendation, which is to keep the issue active pending additional insight from the Virginia Beach State Attorney. I think we know enough, we don't need to bother them. They probably have enough headaches over there in Virginia Beach. I think this is something we can sort out on our own here. We'll probably get some more information from what's going on at the sheriff's office with this organization, and see if that's something we could get in sync with.
I am related to a Virginia Beach sergeant, if that helps, my sister's husband. If he could get us the name of the person who administers the Citizens Advisory Committee, if that would
Sure,
help me.
that would probably help. I mean, you know, maybe we could give it to show people at the sheriff's departments that are trying to wire this out to us, assuming they are. Assuming they are. It's good to have friends.
Yes.
I can push
Relatives.
I can push that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Alrighty, so next on the agenda is a budget overview. Mr. Keaton is just in
Perfect
time. He has agreed to come this evening and brief us on kind of where we landed. I know he briefed us on where we were headed and how things were looking in the April meeting, and now we have a budget.
That's correct. So, the board, we had a number of options the board considered throughout the budget process. Some were, you know, we had to go back and review some of the revenue estimates because some of the, once the machinery and tools tax returns started coming back in, we found that was lower than anticipated by about $350,000. Then we had to up the expense item for the disabled veterans and other people qualifying for that exemption by $500,000. So that was an $850,000 swing right there in just expenses. The $350,000 reduction was one of our larger taxpayers, Smithfield Foods. They've taken out some of the processing equipment, so that reduced the amount of machinery and tools tax that they pay. And of course, it doesn't affect us yet for Keurig because Keurig won't hit us until FY27. They will pay taxes in FY26 because they still had to open as of January 1. It's basically whatever you have on January 1.
Sir, was the $500,000 markup in the disabled veterans relief, was that in addition to the number you showed us last time?
We already increased about $600,000
Right.
in the original budget, and we increased by another $500,000, so total $1.1 million increase. So we have $3.6 million now in the budget for that expense item.
Say that number again,
$3.6 million.
is directly related to
Disabled veterans and the elderly and disabled, so it's all a combination, but the bulk of it is disabled veterans. Is where most of it comes to expense, because it's uncapped. There's a cap on the elderly and disabled of $1,000. There's no cap on the disabled veterans. And there's no income requirement either. So on the elderly and disabled, there's an income requirement.
or net worth, isn't it? Something about,
I
I thought it was a net
I
worth.
don't believe there's a net worth.
think it's income,
Just income.
Yeah.
Household.
household income, correct.
And
So-
there's no end in sight because applications are steadily coming in.
I mean, we're up to about 800 now total on the rolls.
At 100% disability.
Mm-hmm. And for example, I know one of the questions that came up during the budget process was about the number of, maybe there's a backlog in the Department of Veterans Affairs and processing. But for example, Mr. Gwaltney had a batch that come in 1 week. One person was from Isle of Wight County originally. The other 12 were all moving here from elsewhere. So they were already disabled veterans. They were just relocated to Isle of Wight County. So there's no way to predict that. I mean, it's impossible to predict, who's going to move here, who's going to move to the county. So it's something the state's really going to have to address because it's really disproportionately affecting certain localities, and it seems like it's the localities that are, near bases or military installations. Because almost everyone in the Hampton Roads area, almost all the localities in the Hampton Roads area are in that top 20 to 30 localities that are most affected by this bill that allows this.
It must have a impact on Northern Virginia.
Yeah, I think Stafford County is actually the one most impacted. I believe it was 8% of their tax base is affected, is taken up by this exemption. Ours is close to 5% now,
We're down like 24, 26 million.
something like that. Yeah. Virginia Beach and Chesapeake are both in the close to $30 million range, but it's a smaller percentage for them. but they're still in that, 4-5% range. So, I think Hampton is number 2 in the state, and we're number 6. Number 6 in the state as far as percentage of our tax base. So those are 2 big items. So,
Randy,
oh.
do we have the data that says where those people live geographically? Is there a map that paints a picture?
We probably, I'm not sure, I think that's confidential. Gerald did say that it was, I believe it was 50 just in Ben's Grant.
Like what?
50 veterans live in Ben's Grant, just in that one neighborhood.
So what's the head count number?
It's close to
Make up this
800 now.
category?
We're getting close to 800.
800.
And that's 800 heads of household.
Correct. Now, there's a few rare cases where you have 2 people, the husband and wife are both disabled veterans, but they get one, count for the house, but then they each get a vehicle, so each one of them gets a vehicle free.
So some of this maybe, go ahead.
Good.
Well, I mean, 2020, I think the Congress passed the PACT Act, which really, I wouldn't say lowered, but it increased the eligibility for a lot of veterans who went to golf, exposed to burn pits and that kind of stuff. And I think that's why we're seeing such a growth in the number of qualifying disabled veterans for this benefit, this relief. I think that's what part of this was driving some of this is the PACT Act. I can't explain the geographic influx here, but I think nationwide that's what's happening.
Yeah, Virginia, it seems to be primarily the communities that are close to military installations. If you go to the far western part of the state, I mean, they have a small fraction of their tax base is affected, so it's not as impactful, but it's mostly, because you can literally map it and look, every locality was in that top 20, you can almost every one of them were near a base.
So what year was this exemption begun?
2012?
I think it was 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So since they began the exemption, then the military changed the way you file for disability and the speed and ease with which, I guess, and not that you want anybody to have to go through what you were just saying, but if the PACT Act, changed the face of how hard or easy it is to get disabled at certain percentages, then you would think that that's a good nugget to go back to the state with and say, look, the game's changed since 2012 when you put this on us, right? And now there's a disproportionate share, and oh, by the way, the PACT Act, it's made it easier to qualify, and, it's hurting us. I think that would be a reason to go back.
Well, one thing I guess we kind of have to keep in mind is that it is the constitutional amendment in Virginia that the taxpayers voted for. So
It started off as just a general assembly, and
Yeah.
then it was put to a bill, to a referendum, so it's passed by the voters.
So to change caps or any other criteria, would that have to go back as a referendum again?
I think you changed
I
them.
would imagine so.
Why wouldn't they approach it from another way and giving some kind of relief?
That's the approach we're trying to take with them.
Yeah.
Relief to the localities, yeah.
I don't know, locality, when you reach a certain threshold, there's a supplemental income, revenue stream that comes from the state. It was their benevolence that put this out there. And so I think what it is it is having a negative impact on a very specific group of communities.
Mhm.
And so to find some kind of relief with that.
Well, I mean, it's really the entitlement program. It's very similar to other entitlements that are, impossible to gauge, how much it's going to impact us. And so we have, I know Mr. Stefano had asked, how we came up with the estimate. I said, we don't have a way. It's a guesstimate, because we're just trying to stay ahead of it. Because it seems like no matter how high we estimate, every year we're always falling behind what we estimated. And the rate they're coming in, the pace they're coming in, it's just impossible to calculate what it could be. Because we're gonna end up this year over $3 million. We only budgeted $2.5 million the current year. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve right now.
Alright.
So those were two big items that forced a lot of changes. So we went back and we made some changes. One thing, we increased the water rates by an additional 15%, which will take us up to $15.15 per 1,000 gallons. So that would generate $445,000. We also had estimated, we increased some fees on inspections, about $70,000. Then the board wanted us to go back and take a look at some of the expense side. So we did put the positions back in for the sheriff's department January 1 to provide for deputies who have to respond to the hospital when we have in mental health cases. For example, emergency custody orders and emergency detention orders. So the host locality has to provide staff when those people come to the hospital, and then once, I think 72 hours, then the locality from which they came has to come and provide security after that if they're still in the hospital, if they haven't been able to find a bed yet. So that was an issue that the sheriff's department looked for. We also went ahead and added back in the positions to fully staff the Rushmere Volunteer Fire Department for medic services. So that'll be, it was 24-hour coverage there effective January 1. And then at the very end of the General Assembly, they had added positions to just about every clerk of court office in the state, 120 total. And there's a new program where, for example, if Dick, did something in his youth that he would like to have expunged from his record, he can now go back and have his record sealed. And it's a process for that, but it's a very laborious process because a lot of these are paper records. So they're adding a position to every clerk of court to go back and seal those records when he has filed his request.
How soon will you have that in place?
So the governor did sign off. I know he had some reservations at first, but he did sign off on that.
Yes, yeah, they did that. They added 120 positions, and it was very specific. You could not use the funds to supplant another position that was already county funded. In the past, because we almost every constitutional office, we have more people than what the state allows or funds us for, because you can't do the job for how many people they provide. And so in the past, as they would add a position, we're like, okay, well, great. We just get funding for positions already there. When this one, they said, no, it cannot be used to supplant the funding. So we received partial funding from the state. We had to put in about $38,000. Then we went back, we reduced the school budget by $93,000 because once they received some additional funds from the state, they had identified where to spend the money, for example, on the teachers' salaries and the step increases for the teachers, a number of things. They also had a larger increase in their health insurance than they originally anticipated. Once they used all that up, they still had $93,000 left over, so we just reduced the local portion by $93,000 since they could cover that with their additional state funds. They had about $1.2 million in additional state funds that they received because when they had the initial state budget, they used the more conservative number, not knowing what the General Assembly and the governor landed on, so the state ended up providing additional funds. Now, it still doesn't cover the shortfall. They still had a shortfall from what they could have received because they had about 200 fewer students than they anticipated. But 200 fewer students than this year, not that they anticipated. And for this year, for the upcoming year, they used the state's recommendation. Last year, they used a little bit higher number, and we ended up having a shortfall this year.
And that's quite a bit of money to a utility, some kind of.
They had some additional funding. They had some additional costs for utilities. They'd underfunded their utility budget the last couple of years, so they were trying to true that up. So you're right. It was utilities. The biggest one was in the health insurance, and then the next biggest was the step increase. That was like $552,000 for the step increase for teachers. So when all is said and done, our budget actually changed $45,200 $50, I think, from what the original number was. So we had a very small difference in the budget, but a lot of changes in the budget, but the overall budget was
You
not
did
a
it
lot.
pretty close, that's
Yeah.
good.
What was the total operating budget for this year?
113, I think it was 113, are you talking for the upcoming year or the current year?
The upcoming year.
113,219 is the change.
Okay. And do we have an estimate on the reserve fund?
It was in the budget package, hold on a second, I'm thinking.
Were you gonna talk about the capital budget too?
Yeah, sure.
And then I have another question on tax.
Oh, yes, I forgot, I left that part out. So the tax rate, is a 4.5 cent increase instead of the 5 cent increase that was originally proposed. So that was another change, that took $330,000 out of the budget, so that was went down half a penny on that.
Several years ago, there was a discussion on the M&T tax.
Mm-hmm.
Did that occur?
That occurred last year. Yeah,
That occurred last year.
correct, it went up 20 cent last year.
Okay.
In the FY 25 budget. And the board discussed whether to change that again, decided to keep that the same, given the, trying to attract manufacturing businesses to the county. And right now, we're in the lower, I think we're the third lowest in the region as far as the effective rate. So the thought was to keep it that, so we don't scare off any potential manufacturers.
That effective rate does get tricky.
It's
It's
very
It's
tricky.
not just, how many cent per, 100 value or whatnot.
It's about the depreciation schedule, and everybody depreciates a little differently. So,
Yeah.
And just like-
And if you think it's convoluted now, you should have seen the way it was.
Yeah.
before we
Oh,
changed it.
Well, and it's just like the effective tax rates. I know we do a lot of comparison with other localities, and so right now, we're the fourth lowest in the region, if you just look at the real estate rate. But if you look at the overall tax burden, so for example, and I'll just use Southampton because I remember their number, they're at 71 cent, our new rate is 77.5. They also have a $200 solid waste fee that we don't have. If we had a $200 solid waste fee, that would be equal to 5 cents on our tax rate. So that would knock ours back now to 72.5. Their personal property tax rate is also 50 cent higher than ours, so it's 10%, about 10% higher. If you added 10% to our personal property rate, that would generate about another 5 cents. So our overall rate would be lower. So it's all about, and then they tax some things we don't tax, like agricultural equipment. They tax that and we don't tax that. So every community has little nuances that you can't just look at just the real estate tax rate. Even though we're still one of the lowest in the region and in the state, it's not the whole picture.
Did we do anything about
Tobacco.
cigarette?
No, the board didn't discuss cigarette tax this year.
Mostly because the program, according to Mr. Gwaltney, is
It's hard to.
difficult and burdensome to administrate. The stamps and you would end up probably at a net sum zero gain by the time you paid for all the staff to buy the stamps and issue them and track everything. It's really not worth it. But I did ask again this year. I just thought the committee might like to hear about capital too.
Sure. So I don't have my latest numbers here. I grabbed my book with me, but I think you go from memory on most of it. So on the overall capital budget is, you got that handy, Stephanie? It was 12 million?
Well, so it depends, so just the general fund was 5.7.
Okay. I know the schools ended up being 3.3 million, and that was 865,000 for the bus garage, which will cover the engineering and design work and the stormwater piece of that. And then on the,
Oh, man, I could pull up the pocket for it.
oh, you gonna do that? Yeah, that'd be good.
John just remembered he had it already.
The, while we're waiting, I can tell you about the
Reserve.
general fund. So, last year we assigned $5.5 million for different projects, including like $4 million in capital. So that had brought down the beginning fund balance for July 1 of 24 to 26.6 million. Before we allocated funds to the capital for the 26 budget, we're expecting somewhere around $300,000 to be used in the current fiscal year of the unassigned. So once you take out $4 million for the 26 budget that we're using towards capital, it would be around $22 million.
And that's before we know what was added or subtracted from the current year.
We're assuming a $300,000 reduction in
Okay.
unassigned. Based on what's been appropriated during the fiscal year to the budget.
I had asked Don earlier if there was a state requirement. I know that the board sets a requirement or a cap on what they want to do for reserve, but is there a state requirement number or percentage?
Not an official, no, there's not an official requirement for that. There's best practices and, our policy is 15%. But
I think there might be one for debt, but not for fund
Oh,
balance.
For that,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, if you think about it, it takes 8% just to cover 1 month operating expenses. So, we're basically covering about 2 months operating expenses and, and sometimes we're more than that and more than 20%. So,
So it's like a little bit over 2 months of
Yeah.
reserve.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the capital budget. So on the revenue side, we're going to be receiving another 1.5 million from the Sycamore Cross Solar Farm once they get their their site plan approved. So that'll be, we don't know exactly when that'll be, but I know they're working towards that now. So we're just anticipating that as revenue. We're appropriating 4.1 million from fund balance, $800,000 in proffers. These are proffers that have been accumulated over the last couple of years that can be used for a school project. I'll explain that in a little more detail. And that number changes, every month just about, but we were right at $800,000 during the budget. We anticipate some leftover bonds from the Carrollton HVAC project, and this is the number we got from the schools, $568,000. And then stormwater, we put in $250,000 in the stormwater fund to pay for the stormwater improvements for the bus garage, and I'll explain that. So the overall capital budget is $7.2 million. And then here's the details on the schools. Again, the $865,000, which $250 of that we're estimating will be the stormwater improvements, and then the rest could be for the preliminary engineer work and whatever else we can do initially on that. 5 school buses, $763,000. The band room, $1.4 million. That's where the $800,000 is going to. And the reason for it is it's not for the band room, but for the space the band room creates, because we're freeing up classrooms now that are currently used by the band. So when the band room moves into the old boiler room, we have 2 or 3 classrooms. Maybe 4 classrooms. We have several classrooms that we can be converted back to, regular classroom space.
It'd be interesting to see what they really convert them to.
Yeah, and they're also now the schools are also relocating their IT staff out to the Hardy, and that's gonna create a lot more space there, because they had 5 or 6 classrooms, I think, there for their IT staff, so that'll
In
create.
the high school.
In Smithfield
At
High
the
School.
front, to the right of the band room.
Yeah, it's right beside the band room, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that'll create quite a bit of space there at the high school level. Weapons detection systems for the rest of the elementary schools, $180,000. And then to replace or repair the ADA bleachers at Smithfield High School, $125,000.
And the 180 is to finish the balance of the schools, right? There's already detectors and.
Correct. I think this will finish all the rest of the schools.
Right.
With just the
What level?
Elementary.
elementary level.
Elementary is the only one that doesn't have it now, so that finishes that.
Right. And this is just the equipment, not the personnel or anything, but just the equipment for it. Under fire rescue, and we've already funded the fire rescue work with the $2 million we'd already received from Sycamore Cross. So we just did a budget memo for that to go ahead and allow them to order their equipment in this year, before July 1, to try to get ahead of any other locality and maybe order an equipment. So that would be to replace one of the engines at Windsor Fire, replace a medic at Windsor Rescue, and then replace an Isle of Wight medic. Those are $500,000 each. So we already had that money in hand. So rather than put it in the FY26 budget, we just did a budget amendment to do this now. Under public buildings, the Carrollton Fire Department expansion, that's for sleeping quarters. That's just to do the engineering design work on that. So we can, once that work is done, then the board can move forward on the remainder of that. The Windsor Library, even though it says 0 there, they still already had money in there to do the design work. So the design work is moving forward. We had the leftover money we never spent on the expansion of the old library. So that's being used to do the design work. So they have, go ahead.
It's not on the house, it's on the.
Separate building there by the where the elementary school, where the middle school is, and right across from the Windsor Town Center.
Who owns the house? The town?
The county owns the house, the town owns the land. So, interesting situation.
I always get those two flip-flopped.
Yeah. The town owns the dirt and we own the building. The roof and HVAC system for the Smithfield Library, that was, we received some estimates, which were, again, astronomical. I think we're gonna move forward on the HVAC portion, but we're rebidding the roof, or the vice versa, Stephanie.
Or the roof was already out.
Okay. But one of those we're having to rebid it again. So, and then under Public Works and Solid Waste, this is to buy some of the self-contained compactors to go at some of our smaller sites, the Walters, Camptown, and Carsville sites. This will actually save us about 500 hauls per year, trips per year, because right now we're hauling these loose open-top containers. You might have a ton or 2 tons, but you can put 10 tons in these compactors, so it cuts down our trips. So that's really that would give us a cost savings on our operating budget and less wear and tear on the equipment and fuel and all that. Under Parks and Rec, 1.18, and then the list of items over here on the side. We have, of course, we always have capital maintenance needs at all our parks. The Heritage Park restroom, we've finally come up with some ideas on that, how to do that. So this would do the design work. Again, every year we seem like we replace playground equipment. This is the playground equipment at Riverview Park in downtown Smithfield. The Nike Missile Project was to finish that project now. We've got all the soil work done, the site plan is done. They're starting to do the design work for whatever steel structure will hold that missile. And so this will be to fabricate that work once we get those plans finalized. And then we've gotten some preliminary estimates on doing the initial phase at Bradley Park, and this will be to finish that project as well. We had allocated some in the last budget, But again, everything has gone up, so this is just to do phase one.
On the Heritage Park, do we end up running that line all the way?
This will actually be a pump and haul system, so it'll be some large, I mean, that is, now it can be converted to that later on, but this will at least, they're be in position so the tanks can be just outside the fence line where the new buildings are. And then the truck can come up, pump from that, so it'll be gravity flow into those tanks. So that can easily be converted into a system that we can pump out to the new line whenever that gets built. Utilities, 2 million going to utilities for all the different projects they have. We're continuing to replace pump stations around the county, quite a few in Gatlin Point. We've replaced 2 in Gatlin Point. We have some more there. We have stations in other parts of the county as well. We're have funding right now to do the Windsor Back Station. That's about a $400,000 project to bring that station up and to allow us to cut off parts of that system at a time. That system is maxed out. We can't allow any new hookups on the Windsor Back Station right now because of the situation there. And then that just leaves us $85,000 of contingency for any of these projects that may run over. So the total capital budget is 7.2, and with no debt. So that was one of the key items that was talked about. Was there's no new debt. All of this is being funded with existing revenues or fund balance.
That's what the audit committee likes to hear, right? No new debt. Anyone have any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Keaton, for that report. Anybody else have any questions about budget?
Just one, and that has to do with the new debt, or additional debt. What are you forecasting that and what for?
So I would think the next amount of financing would be whenever the board decides to move forward with west side replacement. That would be the next big item.
For the school garage, I don't know.
Well, yes. Now that we're doing the first phase of the school garage, that would be, because I think the middle of the road proposal was the $4 million proposal for the bus garage. So once they get this initial phase done and the design work, they should have a better number for that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. On the west side, on the capital, that project should also not only incorporate a new school as a replacement school, but should also incorporate some type of funding for whatever that the old school is going to be utilized for, whether it's a new library or consolidation of libraries, whether it's a project like they have down in Franklin, and then the funding. Now, that kind of a funding, there should be a repayment because there's a revenue stream coming off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But and that, by the way, they've done extremely well with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Hayden project, I was on the senior services board at the time that was going on, and that they had a lot of historic tax credits from that building because of the historic nature of that. So they really got a lot of funding from that. Unfortunately, I went off the board before they finalized that, but I think they might have had some HUD funding as well. So, but the tax, and then there was debt associated with that. So they're repaying that debt with the rents they received from the residents who lived there.
I'm on the board. We just did. We're getting ready to roll that over.
Mm-hmm.
That structure. So it's going to be self-supporting.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It frees up them to move forward with any of the new projects.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's on our agenda for Thursday for the board that we're talking about CIP.
Yes.
So
Well, and one thing is, during the budget haze of everything, we didn't really get to go into detail about the out year. So that's what we wanted to go over with the board to make sure everybody, because we didn't really get a chance to have a lot of discussion about that. So we wanted bring that up and go over that in more detail.
Yeah, and the thought was, at some point, that conversation would be included with the conversation about the strategic planning, for the county, so it's a little bit of a combination of things, and hopefully we can talk about it in the next few months.
And one last question, did anyone during this budgeting cycle on the schools ask for the numbers on SOQ and non-SOQ? And was that presented to the board?
I don't recall that being specifically presented.
We had about 710 or so school employees, of which 222, this was several years ago now, 222 were non-SOQ. And any that are non-SOQ are being fully funded by the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have that in the paper right in front of me, but they may have that in some of their details, and that number fluctuates because it depends on your number of students you have, how many funds you have, so, and our numbers have actually been going down the last couple of years, so. I'm not sure if that has changed that number.
The SOQ numbers have been going down, the non-SOQ numbers have not.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the student, well, I'm talking about our average daily membership numbers have been going down, so that could affect the number of SOQ positions we're approved for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that has been adjusted downward. The adjustment for non-SOQ has had more than an offset increase.
I mean, what I would say about new positions this year, from the school board's perspective, just from what I have seen with the budget, you know, they came to us at first, and I think the number was 14. They wanted to add 14 positions, and the board wasn't real supportive of that because we weren't adding any new positions at the time. And then by the time we got to the end of the road, ended up adding a handful of positions for safety and security, you know, purposes to the sheriff's department to support the hospital, and then the Rushmere staffing. The schools, I think, at the end of the day, did a nice job trying to reconcile with the county plan, in that what I understand they ended up with from a new position perspective was it's either a half or maybe a full FTE to support the welding program, which everyone on the board is very supportive of. It's a safety officer, right, to monitor some of those things. And then there were a handful of mandated sped positions due to their numbers that they needed to add. And I understand those are the only positions that they added in the 25-26 budget. So at the end of the day, I was fairly pleased with, you know, that course of action. So I'm not thinking that the number of non-SOQ positions appreciably increased, is what I'm saying, from prior years, because that's all they were able to add.
Typically mandated positions are part of the SOQ positioning. When they have a mandated position, they create that, based on the number of students, they create that and add it to the SOQ list. But, so that's not, there we're only covering the differential in pay.
Sure. And then every time they say they're going to give a $1,000 budget or, you know, legislate an increase, then we still only get that percentage of the SAQ positions. The rest falls to the county. All right, so we are, I think, running out of time, and there may be another meeting right behind us. Interestingly enough, I just looked at the clock. I do have one more thing just to ask you all about very quickly. My computer says 5:41, and in April we adjourned at 5:41, so isn't that fun? We might be a minute or two later than that just because of this last item. But under new business, I just wanted to gain a general consensus from the committee as to, you know, additional items to audit, right? So I understand that there will be no, understand please, there will be no meeting in July. We are going to skip, give you some summertime off. We are going to continue the internal audit discussion. I don't think there's a lot there, but we're going to continue that discussion on August 4th. The only other thing I wanted to present under the auspices of the bylaws that we all adopted at the beginning of forming this committee, under that auspices we said to request finance reports, ledgers, budget documents, accounting documents, any other pertinent county funding and finance documentation needed to carry out committee oversight. Basically, we left ourselves open to reviewing anything that might affect the finances of the county, right? And so my suggestion to you for our consideration the next time we meet would be that we request the Tischler Weiss study from the growth and the comprehensive plan review, and that we really dig into and take a look at what was recommended as far as the growth scenarios and what effect they're going to have on finances and diversification of revenue and how all of those things will affect the county and all that. So if there's no opposition to bringing that to the next meeting, then I think it fits under the bylaws and the powers and the duties, and wanted to just bring that to your attention and get any comments.
Chairperson Roundtree, I like the idea. Quick question: is it possible to get maybe a read ahead of that document so we can come a little bit more prepared? And
absolutely, yeah, we've got that. We've got it now. The Tischler Weiss study as to how different growth rate scenarios would affect the finances of the county was presented as a part of the comprehensive plan review back in March, I think, or April. It was not too long ago. And I know they're continuing to talk about it, but I do have that report that can be sent. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that's a very exciting idea.
I knew you'd like it.
The August meeting won't be too bad, but September, October, November are going to be very heavy lifting time of year for me and Mr. Berry. So maybe in consideration of that, either an altered meeting schedule or doing something that won't require much from us during that time period.
Like a financial impact of growth scenarios, right?
I mean,
Might
I guess
work
it
well.
depends. I mean, if it's you guys, digging into it, yes. But also, as far as next item to audit, I'll also be giving you that utility billing report and the day's turnover, so that might be something that
Right.
you can chew on as well. I'm just not sure how available she and I will be during that time. So
Thank you.
Just as a
Thank you for that. All right. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, well, meeting's adjourned at 5:44. Thank you.